Christ, I thought I was done with these disclaimers, but yeah, this video was demonetized out of the blue, which killed its video traffic, sending it down to the algorithmic abyss. And this happened just as it was starting to get recommended to people, after copyright blocked it not once, but twice. And what was the reason this time, you may ask, that the video was demonetized? Hate speech.
Stop!
Now please, if any of you believe this video constitutes anything close to hate speech, feel free to let me know, but there's a reason why I haven't edited this video, or any of its contents for that matter, apart from this opening, because YouTube, I haven't the faintest clue what it is that you're talking about. I'm reviewing a movie here. A really bad movie. I'm calling out an actor on his behavior and his acting talent, or lack thereof. There is no hate speech here. There is no derogatory comments levied towards any other group or people. And if by derogatory or hateful that means we can't express our disdain for how a human being conducts themselves, or criticize the fact that they're terrible at their jobs, or hell, have we really gotten to the point where we can't criticize a terrible movie because of who the lead actor is in the cast? Then Christ, I'm just counting the damn days until Elon takes over this terrible platform. Now that being said, there are some things that I mentioned towards the end of the video regarding this film which have aged somewhat poorly due to recent developments. First of all, Henry Cavill being removed from DC after his surprising cameo at the end of this movie. Now personally, I was quite saddened at this because Henry Cavill is a top-notch guy, he loves Superman, and he's an excellent casting choice. But he was subjected to a franchise led by a bunch of morons, and now that James Gunn is essentially rebooting the whole DC universe, at least that's what he appears to be doing, in which case all the veteran cast members starting with Cavill will likely get replaced. But despite this being unfortunate for Henry, I honestly gotta say, good for him! Because his talent was quite frankly wasted on this franchise, and the terrible Witcher series for that matter, and now he can hopefully move on to bigger and better things. Unfortunately though, he's gone over to Amazon. Best of luck, Henry!
This is going to be a shame.
On the other hand, the good news is that Black Adam and The Rock's wild fantasy of getting his own DC superhero franchise have been torn to smithereens, and it's absolutely glorious. In this video, you're going to hear me dub The Rock the franchise killer, and while he may not have single-handedly killed the DCEU, he was without a doubt the final nail in the coffin. I'm telling you, I ain't lying when I say he's King Midas in reverse and everything he touches turns to shit. And it's a damn shame because he was so pro-DC in that he said DC were trying to be DC and that they weren't trying to follow Marvel. He said that he was focused on the Black Adam universe and building his own franchise, and that was going to be their phase 1 of storytelling.
Stop! He's already dead!
And he was smiling through his phony teeth at Marvel as they blew past his box office bomb, saying, "Congratulations, Black Panther, well done, so happy for you guys." When anyone who knows The Rock and his tactics knows he's just trying to bypass the women and children first rule on a sinking ship. And despite him leaking false profit information from Warner Brothers in an attempt to delude the masses into thinking his movie wasn't a gigantic failure, and the fact that James Gunn appears to be taking the DC franchise in a different direction, I wouldn't be surprised if good old Dwayne here hasn't already made the call to Feige because, let's be honest, he never wanted to be part of DC. He wanted DC to be part of The Rock. And it shows since he pretty much immediately unfollowed Warner Brothers on his Instagram, allegedly, despite The Rock swiftly denying those claims, though I think the writing is on the wall with what happened there, but think of that what you will. Also, poor Kevin Hart. It looks like Dwayne's little mini-me isn't going to get his chance to be a sidekick, at least in the DC universe. Anyway, sorry for the lengthy opening. Please enjoy the video. YouTube hates it, which means you're gonna love it. Have fun.
Do it. Do it.
Do it.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's your pal NOMZ here. And the DCEU takes yet another L with the arrival of Dwayne The Rock Johnson's latest terrible, rockified dumpster fire, Black Shadow, one of the DCEU's worst entries yet, that some fans are hailing as this false messiah of sorts that is supposedly going to right the terrible track record of wrongs that the abysmal preceding releases of the DCEU have left in its wake, and have made up the majority of the DCEU's existence, and for reasons I cannot fathom given his fucking track record, they thought The Rock was actually going to release a good movie for once? Oh, please. This hack fraud phony rat hasn't released a good movie in damn near a decade. And with his rising star in Hollywood and becoming Tinseltown's golden boy, at least for a time, the quality of his acting and his movies have both nosedived in quality since. To be honest, The Rock may be one of the only people outside of Amber Heard who's a better actor in real life than he is on the fucking big screen. Hell, Joe Rogan was certainly impressed. He actually believed that two-faced, arse-looking corporate, ball-fondling piece of shit was actually his friend. He was very convincing in that role.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
What's actually quite sad about Black Shadow, besides its underwhelming box office, lol, is the fact that for every She-Hulk, Rings of Power, and every other dumpster fire that mainstream critics decided to shill, it's gotten to the point where no one with any self-respect or awareness for woke culture BS is actually going to take them seriously when it counts, and unfortunately, this is starting to have a bit of a detrimental effect because in the case of Black Adam, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, the mainstream critics were actually fucking right for a change. But like the boy who cried wolf, nobody wants to indulge anything the mainstream critics have to say anymore. Can't say I blame them, but unfortunately this means most audience members who aren't tired as fuck from superhero movies at this point are going to have to find out the hard way that Black Shadow is a complete pile of shit, and this movie goes to show that no matter how big your star power is, nothing spreads like word of mouth, and if people like or hate your movie, it's going to fucking show. What's absolutely fucking laughable, though, is the fact that this movie was sold as it's gonna be the DCEU movie to shake up the superhero formula because this world has had enough superheroes. Now it's time for anti-heroes and edgelords to have their time to shine. And The Rock is gonna be the first step in this next edgy generation of the DCEU.
The kind of justice you dish out can darken your soul. You can be the destroyer of this world.
Black Adam. Rated PG-13.
Nah, Black Shadow is just another superhero movie where The Rock gets to live out his wet dream of wanting to be Superman without actually getting to be Superman. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to him, rest assured. But as I was saying, the movie is marketed like Black Shadow is going to be a bad guy, and in the source material, at least to my understanding, he actually is. Or rather, he floats the line between anti-hero and villain. You see, in the source material, it turns out Black Adam didn't receive his powers directly from the wizards that granted it to him. It was granted to his nephew, in fact, who freed Black Adam, then known as Teth Adam, from slavery. The two apparently had different ideas on how to use that power. Apparently his nephew wanted to liberate Wakanda, Kahndaq. And Teth Adam wanted revenge on the slavers. So what Teth Adam apparently does is kill his own nephew and steal the power of Shazam for himself, and uses it to exact vengeance, and whilst doing this, the power of Shazam corrupts him and turns him into an evil overlord on the people of Kahndaq. Now, admittedly, this addition to Black Adam's origins was done in a later comic run as a kind of reimagining of the origin story, but regardless, this specifically is the origin story that Black Adam the movie was clearly trying to adapt, and completely fucking failed to do so, because what actually happens in the movie is, yes, Teth Adam is a slave, and yes, he is given the powers of Shazam, but instead, it's his son who frees him. Instead of receiving half of his power, Teth Adam in fact receives all of his son's power, and then his son is just immediately shot by the king's assassins, and then Teth Adam swears revenge and kills the evil king and all his followers, not slaves, but his royal guard and his royal council and his royal fucking court. All those who are loyal to the evil king. And this, according to the movie, makes Black Adam evil. No, all this movie actually fucking did was water down the source material, leaving out crucial parts that actually make Black Adam a villain just so The Rock could save a little bit of face and pretend to be a villain, and distinguish this movie from being yet another superhero movie, when in actuality, The Rock is just being another by-the-numbers fucking superhero that the marketing baited relentlessly that this was not going to be the case. And this isn't helped by the fact that every 5 fucking seconds in the movie, The Rock is like,
I'm no hero. I never said I was a hero. Kondak needed a hero. Instead, it got me. Tunekikana, Galatina, Lamava.
Does this mean you're finally going to be our hero?
Kondak has always had heroes. What it needs now is a protector.
but the whole fucking time he's just fighting bad guys and saving Comic Book Kid from rightfully getting killed numerous times. Oh yes, that character. I'll get to that little shit stain soon enough.
I am talking scorched earth, motherfucker! I will massacre you!
But my point is, Black Shadow goes from being a bad guy, sort of, actually not at all really, to being this good guy with no development in between whatsoever. Welcome to another Dwayne The Rock Johnson movie. The only instance you actually get the feeling that the movie might follow through on its bold marketing strategy is the opening action sequence. But Black Adam is still saving the good guys because plots and killing a bunch of bad guy mercenaries who are after the crown of who gives a shit. Oh yeah, by the way, there's this ancient crown MacGuffin that you're supposed to care about that practically vanishes for most of the movie when they aren't playing hot potato with it, and you have no idea what the fuck it does until the movie decides to have a villain in the final 30 minutes of its runtime. Yeah, this movie actually has no villain until, like, the last minute when they decide to shove it in. Gee, it's almost like the movie's marketing was setting Black Adam up to be the villain. But like I said the whole time, as a villain, understand, he's just fighting bad guy mercenaries. Or hell, even the Justice Society, who, despite their good guy status, actually carry themselves like the bad guys for a large portion of the movie. Yes, don't worry, I will come back to them. But really, the only loosely villainous acts that Black Adam was carrying out for the entirety of the runtime is killing nameless, cannon fodder, corrupt mercenaries, which isn't even really all that unbecoming of a superhero. Hell, just look at the first Iron Man movie. Granted, killing mercenaries is more of an anti-hero trait, but certainly far from that of a villain. However, the movie was actually banking on its audience having a kindergartner's IQ and tries to actively make them believe this somehow makes Black Shadow the bad guy.
Heroes don't kill people.
Well, I do.
Evil. Also, maybe people would have been more willing to accept Black Shadow as the villain if you, I don't know, didn't cut shots from the fucking trailer that show him being a villain, where Black Shadow commits blatantly evil acts, like when a patrol of 2 F-35 jets signal for him to land, and then he just kills one of them for shits and gigs. Like, wow, that's some pretty evil shit right there. And that's why The Rock, most likely, probably fucking nixed it, because ever since he gained superstardom, his pathetically fragile ego has been incapable of letting him play a bad guy for more than 5 fucking seconds. And this here is where I'm really gonna vent my frustrations on The Rock if I haven't already. Seriously, to the people who actually thought Dwayne The Rock Johnson over here was gonna be a bad guy for once,
What were you thinking? What was going on in your mind?
get fucking real, douchebag. This Hollywood rat hasn't been a bad guy since Doom 2005. Ah yes, fonder times when The Rock's Hollywood career was heading in the direction in retrospect that he probably fucking deserved. And in fact, The Rock hasn't even been a good bad guy since his heel run against Goldberg back in 2003. But yeah, good luck seeing that from modern day Dwayne here. The dude's ego is so fucking fragile, he may look like Iron Mike, when in actuality underneath all that roid meat, he's nothing but Glass Man Sam. Bear this in mind before we dive deeper into the movie's plot and characters, that The Rock is such a little bitch that apparently the reason why every single one of his films nowadays have him perform a Hulk Hogan spurg out and just maul the shit out of all of his bad guys in every single fucking action scene is because he has to feel like a tough guy without actually fucking being one. Every single one of his contracts apparently has this clause where he can't lose any of his fights, and he can only take a select number of shots to the face.
Pussy.
Now, apparently, this all started with Vin Diesel in the Fast and Furious franchise, the only other actor with a possibly more deluded, inflated ego than The Rock. And apparently, Jason Statham and Dwayne The Rock Johnson caught wind of Vin Diesel's unusual contract clause and decided to make it a part of their contracts as well. Remember when I said The Rock started destroying franchises after he got his career boost from coasting off the resurgence of the Fast and Furious back in the late 2000s? When he debuted in Fast 5 in 2011? Again, that's because he was still arse-licking his way into everyone's good graces and trying to make a name for himself. And to do so back then, one, he had to actually act, which is one of the reasons he was actually fucking good in Fast 5.
Just here to bring in two assholes whose names hit my desk. Or some wannabe tough guy prick who beat a man half to death with a socket wrench. You turn around and put your hands behind your back.
And two, he had to actually take a beating on screen because, guess what? He actually lost a fucking fight in that film. And as over the top as that fight was, he's scarcely had another compelling fight scene since then because he tries to constantly treat his fucking films like kicking the shit out of jobbers back in WWE to protect his ego as opposed to actually making something worth fucking watching. You'll also notice that Dwayne The Rock Johnson, in most of his fucking films since then, ceases to fucking act at all and just lives and breathes his typical tough guy one-liner persona that in every single one of his fucking movies acts and sounds the fucking same. Much like his eyebrow raise and phony as fuck smile, it's played the fuck out and it's just another reason why his films aren't fucking worth watching anymore.
Because The Rock is a man. And The Rock represents a majority of men around the world. We don't like you. We don't respect you. Why? Because we, us men, see through bullshit. And we smell a phony punk a mile away.
Ironic.
So why mention all this? Why shit all over The Rock and take this little detour away from dissecting Black Adam? And why it's one of the worst DCEU movies to date? Simple, because Black Adam is such a terrible movie in very large part due to the fact that it's yet another Dwayne The Rock Johnson fucking dumpster fire with all of his worst tendencies front and center, and because of that, you know what to expect from this movie. To sum it up, it's another Rock movie, but it's also a wannabe MCU movie, whilst also being a Zack Snyder slow-mo orgy fest, whilst also trying to be the worst of the DCEU, though a lot of people would argue that the last two I mentioned are actually one and the same. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about the movie's plot, and there's barely a plot at all, really. It's paper fucking thin, so I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. Trust me, I don't want to talk about this movie any longer than I have to. Basically, long ago, Black Adam, or the Champion of Karnak, liberated the kingdom with the power of Shazam, and then he went away for 5,000 years. Then the wizards hid the crown MacGuffin, and then the ancient descendants of families dating back 5,000 years immediately find the crown, which apparently was extremely easy to find. Then evil corporate gang shows up looking for the crown, and MILF bitch reads inscription and releases Black Adam like it's nothing, who then wrecks the shit out of the mercenaries. Black Adam gets hit with an Eternium missile that for some reason is never used on him ever again, despite it being super effective. Basically his kryptonite, I guess. And then it turns out one of the good guys was a turncoat bad guy, and he orchestrated the whole thing. And apparently he is meant to be the main villain of this fucking movie, despite the fact that he disappears for like an hour of the movie's runtime. Then it cuts to the the Justice Society, which I'm not saying the Justice Society ripped off the X-Men in the source material, because the Justice Society goes back a long way. But when it comes to this whole movie and this reveal sequence, it's a giant middle finger to that IP. There's no command center or Fortress of Solitude here. It's just Professor X's mutant school mansion, and it even has a backyard that opens up its ground, where the Justice Society have their high-tech superjet that flies these random heroes wherever they are needed across the world. So I guess it wasn't just the lowbrow, over-the-top human that this movie tried to rip straight off from Marvel. Spoiler, it doesn't work. As for the Justice Society, apparently in DC canon, the Justice Society predates the Justice League, and the Black Adam movie treats it as such, which on top of all that, and the other sloppy continuity issues with the DCEU, this raises about another million other questions of where the fuck have these guys been this whole time? And why the fuck didn't Bruce Wayne find out about them when he was investigating the metahumans for the Justice League? You know what's funny? Is that when the Justice Society goes to Karnak, MILF bitch, who's the secondary main character of the movie, I guess, she asks them, yo, we've been fighting the Intergan for like 27 years under their occupation. Where the fuck have you guys been that whole time?
Justice Society? We have been living under military occupation 27 years and never seen you before.
And then the movie just straight up refuses to answer that because they fucking know they have no answer. Because she's right. It's fucking bullshit that these guys were around because they never showed up the countless times the world actually fucking needed them. Wow, DC, really? Why even bring that up? Being self-aware that your continuity is incredibly dumb doesn't make it okay, you morons. I'm guessing that was a Rock decision though, right? Anyway, what's most hilarious about the Justice Society is that their whole objective is meant to be intercepting Black Shadow and trying to negotiate with him so that he doesn't go on a rampage against humanity. But Hawkman, who's supposed to be the leader of this small, never-heard-of superhero club, couldn't negotiate a discount at Target. Like, these are meant to be the good guys, but like I said, the movie almost carries them like the villains because they're meant to negotiate some kind of truce with Black Shadow. But Hawkeye immediately opts to start a fight.
I will hear them out. But if they choose to fight, they choose to die.
We're here to negotiate the terms of your peaceful surrender.
I'm not peaceful, nor do I surrender.
What have your powers ever given to you? Nothing but heartache.
You have no idea.
Why are you making this hard on us? We both know you're not supposed to be here.
It is you who is not supposed to be here. I want you all to leave Kahndaq and never return.
Gladly, with you as our prisoner.
How about I rip your little wings off instead?
I'd like to see you try. This can only end one way.
The negotiations were short.
Sure, Black Shadow isn't exactly playing nice, but he's got no issue with the Justice Society. Hawkman is actually the instigator and thus would be considered the villain of this conflict, trying to pick a fight with someone who barely has any idea what fucking era he's in. So yeah, basically, the Justice Society makes no sense continuity-wise, is completely incompetent, and really is just filler for the movie that has nothing to do with the Crown MacGuffin, because like I said, Black Shadow isn't the villain in this story, despite the fact he was baited to be so. Instead, it's this random dude who's related to the king from 5,000 years ago, who nobody gives a shit about, but I'll get back to him. Returning to the plot, however, the Justice Society fights Black Shadow, despite the fact that this entire altercation could be avoided in 5 seconds if Hawkman wasn't negotiating like a 5-year-old. But the writers, and Dwayne, know that if this conflict is resolved as easily as it should be, then the action sequence that they want to happen, that serves virtually no story purpose, ceases to exist, and then they don't actually have a movie. So of course, it's incompetence of the characters that leads to conflict, and now they have a fight sequence. As for the heroes that make up the Justice Society, let's talk about some of them, shall we? Like, Hawkman was okay, I guess, despite him being a really contradictive character in his actions. Again, he's the negotiator, or at least he's supposed to be, when instead he comes across as the instigator. But besides that, I suppose he was the leader, and he basically just kept the others in line. He kind of reminded me of early days Captain America in the first Avengers movie, back when he was a gigantic Boy Scout and a complete stiff with a chip on his shoulder. But ultimately, Hawkman was nothing special. Moving on, however, let me just say, I know I've spent a lot of time shitting all over The Rock in this video. Not sure I made that clear yet, I don't really like The Rock, just in case anyone missed it. But that said, shockingly enough, The Rock wasn't the worst part of this movie. That dishonor in large part goes to Atom Smasher. No, not Atom Smasher from Cyberpunk 2077. Atom Smasher, as in this motherfucker apparently smashes atoms or something. Also, he can expand his size and turn into a giant motherfucker as well. And who DC, in their infinite lack of wisdom, decided they'd turn into a complete and utter bumbling fucking retard.
It's pretty cool. You got any snacks? It takes a lot of energy to smash atoms. You want me to keep my hand here, right? You better not let him up. I am so sorry. Was that expensive? Okay, I got this. This feels a lot higher than last time. Careful, dude. I almost hit you. I am so sorry. I don't really have peripheral vision in the mask. Life is short. You gotta hold on to what you love. Stop.
Typical incompetent male depiction in today's Hollywood, nothing really new here. and who undoubtedly was a complete MCU rip-off insert character, which is never a good idea. Because it's characters like this that drag the fucking movie down with terrible humor that's Marvelized and cringe. Seriously, if modern day MCU humor is vomit-inducing, an MCU comedy relief character ripoff is gonna make the audience want to rip their own ears off. Like, case in point, Adam Smasher air jumps out of the X-Men plane the Justice Society apparently have, and he needs to rendezvous with Hawkman and the other members, and it turns out he's running in the completely wrong direction, despite the fact that Black Shadow and Hawkman and Cyclone and Dr. Fate can all fucking fly.
I'm coming, I'm zeroing in on your location!
Like, fucking what? That's not funny, that's just completely batshit stupid, as if he can't see where they are or know which direction to go in. Like, characters making mistakes can be funny at times, but not when it's actively dumbing down their intelligence, because that causes a disconnect between the audience and the character. After this one sad attempt at a joke, I lost all potential of getting invested in Adam Smasher. And we haven't even gotten to the MCU-ified humor and quips that this motherfucker kept spouting, since the writers insisted on beating their audience over the head with this shit. Side note here, there's actually a quote directly from The Rock saying that Black Shadow and the DCEU isn't trying to replicate anything, and all they're interested in trying to be is DC.
Right.
Now we come to the character called Cyclone, who is just completely fucking useless. Seriously, she does nothing of value in any of her fight scenes. Her only contribution is Wakandaing a character back to life with nanotech, which, unlike Martin Freeman in Black Panther, this character, on the other hand, nobody actually fucking liked. Seriously, I was just hoping that this neckbeard fat shit died on the operating table, but sadly this movie couldn't even give us that. But speaking of characters that nobody fucking liked, and briefly taking a sidestep from the Justice Society, dear God, I gotta talk about the most annoying character in possibly the entire DCEU, this little shitbag, who I'm just going to dub Comic Book Kid. Holy fucking shit, this kid is the most insufferable, fucking worthless piece of shit character since Rose Tico. Like, seriously. People had the nerve to shit on child Anakin, who's just acting like an endearing 10-year-old who wanted to explore the galaxy. And to all those who did so,
take a big step back and literally fuck your own face!
Let me direct your lack of an attention span to this fucking character over here. Take a look. Look at him. Look at this little fucking shitbag here. This is what an annoying character is, right here. So let's get into why this character is so terrible. First off, like Lois Lane in Man of Steel, this character just keeps popping up wherever the film decides they needed to force him into. Like a malignant cancer that just won't take a fucking hint to go away.
Where are you going? You don't feel any loyalty to us at all? You're not seeing the full possibilities here. Having superpowers is kind of a big deal in our world.
Could you please shut the fuck up?
Clean up your outfit a little bit, get a cape, change your name. It's a little outdated. You definitely need a catchphrase. How badass to say right before you absolutely cook some dude.
Shut the fuck up!
And you wear a lot of black, so we should really lean into that. Magazines, lunchboxes, video games, and the superhero industrial complex is worth a lot of money.
Shut up!
He persists on and on for the entire movie. Hell, there's actually this moment during the fight with Black Shadow where Dr. Fate creates this, like, mirror dimension reality where he removes all civilians from the battle zone to protect them, but for some reason the spell neglects to include Comic Book Kid and his MILF bitch mother because of the goddamn plot and because they have to be on screen no matter what, because they gotta earn their paychecks, damn it. Seriously, the longer Comic Book Kid was on screen, the more I felt DC actively fucking hated us. As for Comic Book Kid, his only purpose in this entire film, really, is to distract a couple of guards at the start of the movie whilst reciting cringy Twitter hashtag virtue signaling lines and fanboying about DC Comics to push product.
No, what you are is a neo-imperialist enforcer from halfway around the world, sent here to steal my country's natural resources, strip mine our sacred lands, pollute our water, oppress our heritage.
Oh my god, my insides are on fire!
Seriously, what kid actually fucking talks like that? This little shit is basically a corporate insert DC mark who's desperately trying to appeal to the DC fanboys and shill DC comics and merch, and it's completely fucking cringe. Seriously, DC, your own comics in your DCEU continuity? Like, Wonder Woman retreated from the world for nearly a century, which she spent keeping a very low profile. Oh wait, sorry, Wonder Woman 84 happened, that fucked all of that up, my bad. But still, why would this kid have a comic of Batman? Superman, maybe, since humanity has grown to accept him at this point, sort of. But Batman is a ruthless, violent, borderline sociopathic vigilante who brands criminals like a death sentence for prisoners to murder. I doubt they're making comics about him. Point is, this whole attempt at copying this reference gag that Into the Spider-Verse did very well was completely cringe on your behalf, DC. Into the Spider-Verse, despite my problems with it, is still a pretty good Spider-Man film. And what made this very similar self-reference gag work in that movie is the fact that Spider-Man was hailed as a hero at that point in the timeline, and had been operating for so long that he had almost become a cliche. Hell, by that point, the Spider-Man character was a commercial success, and he was marketed and exposed to New York City as a product even. The reason why they use the iconic Spider-Man comic art is because Miles Morales is trying to follow in Spider-Man's heroic footsteps and take up his mantle. You see, this actually has a story purpose behind it. In Black Shadow, the only purpose these references serve is cringe, and even more cringe. The only other purpose that Comic Book Kid has is he gets himself kidnapped and sadly not killed with the Crown MacGuffin by the bad guys who all of a sudden decide to show up and remind us that they still exist. And now the Evil King's descendant wants to wear the crown and gain the powers it has. But wait, there's a twist, an ultra super mega ultimate important twist, which I'll get back to momentarily. Hawkman, on the other hand, however, is still instigating fistfights with Black Shadow, this time in Comic Book Kid's room, where they fight and Black Shadow accidentally finds the crown that Comic Book Kid hid from the bad guys, and they all decide to take the X-Men jet to go and rescue Comic Book Kid from the bad guys with the crown in hand. It looks like Black Shadow and the Justice Society might start fighting again over what to do with the crown until MILF Bitch breaks them up because we gotta go save Comic Book Kid and they all need to get along and be on the same team. I sit there pondering to myself why these guys even give the faintest shit about Comic Book Kid. And if I actually watched this movie in the movie theater, because newsflash, I did not do that, well, this would have been the part where I walked out of the theater because it's here that the movie just becomes ridiculously predictable and cliche, except for one small part which I'll get to near the end. So Black Shadow and the Justice Society go to confront whoever the fuck this is to rescue Comic Book Kid and exchange the Crown MacGuffin for his safety. After the bad guy gets the crown, he decides to bait Black Shadow into killing him after he tries to kill Comic Book Kid, and in doing so, Black Shadow has a giant vomit-inducing CGI spurg out. Seriously, look at this shit. Stop! And he absolutely annihilates the bad guy base and almost kills Comic Book Kid. Almost.
God fucking damn it!
Who was saved by Dr. Fate. And all of a sudden, this makes Black Shadow have a crisis of conscience. And so he flies back to Kahndaq, where he looks out at the city's monument and he decides to tell Hawkman the truth about what happened to him and how he got his powers, which I previously explained. And after doing this, he is still bafflingly insistent that he's not a superhero for reasons, and decides to give up his superhero powers. Again, for reasons. Wish I could tell you why, but there is no why, and that's a big fucking problem with this movie. That is, unless, in this case, nearly killing a boy he really should have had no attachment to whatsoever, while simultaneously saving his life from a bullet with those same powers counts as a why for giving up his superpowers instead of being a nonsensical, glaring fucking contradiction. So you save this stupid boy with your powers, spurg the fuck out like you're having a roid rage, blow up the base, and somehow this makes you give up your powers.
You're not making any sense at all.
Oh, fuck this film. But yeah, Black Shadow gives up his powers, and then he surrenders himself to be taken to a super high-tech government facility where he is permanently gagged so that he can't say the magic word to get his powers back, and that appears to be that. The movie is over.
But wait!
Until the writers decide they all of a sudden need to have a villain for Black Shadow to overcome. So the useless bad guy, after getting killed with the crown of who gives a shit, wait for it, comes back to life, because a couple of times throughout the movie, the crown had this ominous inscription on it saying, "Life is the only path to death." Ooh. But the big fat Shyamalan of the story, remember I said there was a twist coming, is that the inscription is meant in the opposite way. So the bad guy gets reborn as Satan's ugly CGI mentally handicapped cousin, and now he's stronger than the entire Justice Society combined. Oh shit, I guess you shouldn't have put Black Shadow on ice for literally no reason whatsoever. But hey, we wouldn't have had any tension for this fight scene if he was still actually around. Nor would any of these characters be in any real danger of dying. And that finally brings me to Dr. fucking Fate, who I very intentionally neglected to discuss earlier because I wanted to wait until the final act of the movie for reasons that will become clear in a second. Dr. Fate is played by the legendary Pierce Brosnan and was undoubtedly the best part of this entire movie by a nebula fucking light year. This character, for the most part, is actually competent, though admittedly he has problems with negotiating as well.
If we can peacefully negotiate the terms of his existence.
We know who you are and what you are capable of. There's no place for you in the world of man. You'll have two choices. Kneel or die.
The negotiations were short.
The negotiations never took place.
He actually has decent dialogue.
I remember seeing my first airplane. It was an RAF deployment, headed to the Western Front. Everyone on my street came out to see him off. I didn't cheer, even though I was only a boy. I knew where they were headed and what awaited them. Thanks to this, I've lived longer than I could have ever hoped for. I've seen the world change in more ways than I could have imagined. But I'm still a sentimental fool, and I don't want my friend to die.
His repertoire of powers is actually pretty cool. He's the only character you give even the faintest fuck about, which again is largely due to the charisma and charm of Pierce Brosnan. In short, this character was actually likable, which is probably why this character cannot live, because DCEU can't be competent for more than 5 fucking seconds before fucking up. Character is likable, character is actually resonating with the audience, thus he must die. So let's kill him off. And so yeah, long story short, Dr. Fate dies sacrificing himself in a very stupid way that ultimately achieves nothing for the DCEU long term, but before he dies, he uses his telepathy to communicate with Black Shadow, telling him that the world needs him, blah, blah, blah. And so Black Shadow wakes up and hilariously has a weird sort of fight/escape scene from the prison facility. And so instead of just saying Shazam and flying the fuck out of there instantly to save Dr. Fate, they purposely pretend he's too stupid to say the word until after Black Shadow almost drowns, and only after Dr. Fate is killed, because in this clusterfuck of a sequence, Black Shadow runs into some water, floats to the surface of an icy lake, and only then does he say the fucking word. Seriously, it's like these fuckers didn't even try with this movie. And The Rock is still under the deluded impression that this is going to be his next big hit. I mean, like I said, he hasn't really even had a big hit in over a decade. He just keeps getting hired for shitty products as a difference. But oh well, at least Dr. Fate did leave a lasting impression on this film, by which I mean somehow Pierce Brosnan managed to get this failed abortion of a film banned in China. Wow, so much for that vast reservoir of fucking Chinese box office numbers coming to this film's rescue. For that, Pierce Brosnan, we thank you. Hell, who knows, maybe Dwayne No Cock's superhero fanfiction trash won't actually get a sequel after all. Oh, who the hell am I kidding? It's Dwayne No Cock Johnson. If this guy isn't failing upwards, he's got no problem catching some Weinstein down the throat to get what he wants. Anyway, a really bad fight scene happens. Black Shadow kills Discount Satan by ripping him in half and uttering a really cringy Rock one-liner.
Tell him the man in black sent you.
I have no idea if this is comic accurate or not, but that line just made me wince because it came from The Rock. Anything cool that comes out of The Rock's mouth is instantly ruined by the fact that it came from The Rock. Anyway, after the battle is over, the Justice Society says goodbye to Black Shadow and tells MILF Bitch to keep an eye on him and keep him out of trouble. He also warns Black Shadow that his dark justice can corrupt his soul. Ooh. And then MILF Bitch is like, but his darkness allows him to do what heroes like you cannot. It's like, wow, honey. Like, Hawkman just helped save your entire city from being fucking destroyed. How about a little fucking appreciation while you're at it? Also, not to mention that Black Shadow literally did nothing all that dark this entire movie, except killing some mercenary pricks and a guy who literally looks like Satan himself if he was covered in a green screen and horrible CGI. Not to mention, he was the bad guy. So Black Shadow killing him really isn't all that dark at all. And as I said, this movie only ever baited a morally corrupted superhero. But what we really got was another terrible Dwayne the No-Cock dumpster fire where he desperately wants to be Superman without actually being Superman. Foreshadowing. And then Black Shadow is like, I'm not a hero, but I'm going to be the protector of Kahndaq.
Kahndaq has always had heroes. What it needs now is a protector.
Seriously, is there even a fucking difference here? Like, they're really pushing the he's not a hero, but they're basically just using all these other words that are pretty much hero-defining to describe him. And the whole time they were doing this, I couldn't help but fucking cringe. And then Black Shadow destroys the throne of Kahndaq and decides to be called Black Shadow.
But wait! There's more!
And then there's a mid-credit scene where Black Shadow negotiates with the world government about him keeping watch over Kahndaq. And then the film ends with the Superhero Society Administration, or whoever the fuck they are, sending Henry Cavill's Superman to greet Black Shadow and insist that they have a chat. And as if this movie didn't already have enough continuity errors and unanswered questions, leave it to the DCEU in the last 10 fucking seconds of the movie to introduce another million unanswered movie-breaking questions. Seriously, it was cool to see Henry Cavill again. Personally, I've always enjoyed his portrayal of Superman, though unsurprisingly to many I'm sure, I'm not really a Superman fan. But all celebrity status aside, Henry Cavill is an absolute mad lad, a complete down-to-earth, awesome guy, and I'm happy for him getting to play Superman again. But dear God, this poor dude deserves so much better than the DCEU. And this latest flaming pile of dog shit, hopefully they actually do a reboot or soft reboot with Henry Cavill's Superman and keep him far the fuck away from Dwayne No-Cock Johnson and any more of his terrible fucking productions. Seriously, if Superman was around this whole time, why the fuck didn't the people of Kahndaq ever try to reach out to him after they had been supposedly under occupation by a group of mercenaries for 27 years? Fuck this movie. It doesn't make the tiniest shred of fucking sense. Please, please, DC fanboys, get yourselves a fucking standard. I know you want to see this franchise thrive, but trust me, this ain't it, Chief. And that finally, mercifully brings us to the end of the movie. Holy shit, that was a fucking unbearable slog. Almost 2 hours in and I was either begging for the credits or a comment. How in the holy hell audiences can actually think this movie is something to get behind and support is absolutely beyond me. But hey, at least there's hope for mainstream critics after all. Turns out they can actually get shit right about as often a time as a solar eclipse rolls around. It's rare, it's ever so rare, but it happens. And they were certainly right about Black Shadow. I'd call Black Shadow a disappointment, but when it comes to The Rock, he never fails to deliver a disappointment. So I can't exactly say my expectations were high. And this movie is a great example of how you can have a non-woke movie, but it still doesn't equal a quality movie. I mean, even though Black Shadow still had a healthy dose of wokeness in it. But as we all expected, The Rock just played The Rock. And it was the same watered-down, shallow piece of trash that he always brings to his productions. And you know, I hate to pull this card, but if the box office is anything to go by for this particular case, this phony fucking tool and his shtick are all the way played the fuck out. If you want to act in movies, Rock, you kinda have to act in the first place. If you want to adapt a comic character, you have to remain reasonably faithful to the character's source material instead of just turning it into edgelord Superman. And if you want to make a successful movie and start yet another fucking terrible Rock franchise and universe, then you kinda have to make sure the movie is fucking good. So what happens now? Well, I can only speculate, but judging by this box office again, and given that DC is actively trying to cut their losses as of late, I doubt that we can expect a Black Shadow sequel, or as deluded Dwayne wanted, his own Black Shadow cinematic universe. Isn't that just precious? Understand what I'm saying here. This doesn't mean that we're not going to see Black Shadow again in another DC production. They'll probably insert him in as part of an ensemble DC film, maybe Justice League 2 or something. Or who knows, maybe Dwayne will do what he always does and suck corporate dick harder than he pumps steroids to get yet another terrible production approved. And here's my not so bold prediction for the DCEU if Dwayne isn't kept in check. The Rock is gonna do what he always fucking does, which is smile and shake hands and act like he has this great proposal for corporate management. He'll charm them with his eyebrow raise, tweet a couple of shout-outs on Twitter so they understand how profitable he is, and they'll end up giving him what he wants and give him a role in a franchise of theirs, and they'll make him one of the centerpieces. And then Dwayne is going to be like, hey guys, thanks for bringing me into the family. I'm so excited to work with all of you. Blah, 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 blah. Typical phony nice guy Rock, acting all humble and like the new kid on the block, trying to fit in. And then once that project is finished and Dwayne has a foothold on the franchise, and by the way, we're up to that point right now after the release of Black Shadow, now that Dwayne has his foot in the door, he's gonna coatsy up to James Gunn, who's now apparently running the show, or he's gonna go over James Gunn's head and undermine him by buttering up some gullible, money-grubbing Warner Brothers executive to get his own shitfuck of a franchise greenlit within the DCEU. For the longest time, The Rock has just desperately, shamelessly wanted his own franchise. Or rather, he wants to hijack an existing profitable franchise, or simply ones that take his fancy, and he wants to hijack it and make it all about him. And every single time he has done this, it has resulted in failure. Maybe not in immediate financial failure, but as soon as he gets the control that he wants, he'll basically destroy what people like about the franchise and turn it into another Dwayne Johnson production that nobody fucking likes, has no personality that resembles the franchise and tone he's meant to be conforming to, and ultimately the production ends up with a story and plot that's a complete joke, that's designed for bottom-of-the-barrel consumers that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, and thus the franchise nosedives in popularity. He did this to the Fast and Furious, where he showed up and acted like a team player, and ultimately found some success, at least in the beginning, when he debuted in the franchise in 2011 with Fast 5, but then he tried to make it all about him, and ultimately ended up being one of the main reasons why Fast and Furious was run into the ground. The movies got progressively worse with each sequel after Fast 5, and by Fast 8, it was completely unrecognizable as a Fast and Furious movie, and then The Rock undermined Vin Diesel, and then the corpos gave him his little Dwayne The No-Cock Johnson movie with Jason Statham, because Rocky wanted his own little franchise set within the Fast and Furious franchise, and it sucked. It only succeeded financially because Fast and Furious is enormously popular, or at least it was. He tried to do the same thing to Baywatch, and that sucked. He tried to do the same thing to G.I. Joe, and that sucked. And really, the only time he's done this with any ongoing success is with Jumanji. He hijacked a dormant IP, a Robin Williams classic, never forget, and instead of The Rock making anything even remotely resembling Robin Williams' classic film, he instead opted to do what he always does and turn it into a Rock franchise. And instead we got two shitty Rock and Kevin Hart garbage comedy flicks that don't even in the slightest bit resemble the tone and charm of the original movie. Now, admittedly, that garbage found financial success and audience acclaim, so regrettably, we're probably going to get a whole lot more of them in the future. But that aside, hopefully I've made my point. And mark my words, the DCEU will be no different. It's already fucking started with him saying he wants to focus on the Black Shadow cinematic universe that virtually no one really gives a shit about, when everyone just wants good Superman movies, good Batman movies, good Wonder Woman movies. Now granted, what The Rock is proposing and what his ultimate end goal is, and has always been, is going to be a tough sell, given Black Shadow's terrible box office returns. But like I said, Dwayne, again, mark my words, will be working very, very hard to undermine Cavill, Affleck, Gal Gadot, to get more of the DC spotlight placed on him. I'm already certain he has Kevin Hart, that shitty little weasel's name, written on the pitch for a Black Shadow sequel. Because we all know that's The Rock's go-to recipe for a successful movie shitfuck. Just sprinkle some Kevin Hart on there and turn it into a terrible Rock and Kevin Hart comedy that's played the fuck out already. Hell, they just got done recording DC Super Pets, so I don't imagine Dwayne No Cock will leave his buddy out of the terrible Black Shadow universe that he wants to make. And yeah, I'm firmly calling it now. Dwayne's either going to try to hijack the Justice League and make it all about him, or he's going to convince Warner Brothers to shelve Justice League and focus on the Black Shadow League or whatever crappy idea that phony prick has in mind. Bottom line, the DCEU was already in freefall. Making James Gunn the head of production going forward was a good idea, so it feels like the franchise has some direction going forward, but bringing in The Rock was the exact polar opposite of a good idea. The Rock is where once great franchises go to die. And then get Frankenstein back to life as another Rock and Kevin Hart terrible comedy fucking flick. Bad fucking move, DC. And this has already been proven with the terrible returns for Black Shadow as of this video. Again, if the DCEU and James Gunn have any brains, they'll keep The Rock as far away from any productions going forward. Or they'll just have him there to smile for the cameras, stay the fuck away from creative, know his damn role, and shut his damn mouth. And then maybe, if Dwayne just does what he's told, maybe, just maybe, it can go somewhere good. Or if DC is even smarter, they can get rid of The Rock altogether so he can fuck off to Marvel and put the final nail in their coffin as well. Hell, it's not like they don't deserve it at this point. Look, despite how I may come across in this video, I'm actually not as jaded with DC and Warner Brothers as I am with Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige. The way I see it, DC are incompetent as fuck, but Marvel is just straight up shameful in their practices. Personally, I always liked Man of Steel and thought it was great. Still do, for that matter. Go to hell. And I found BVS and Justice League to be fun. Oh, they were terrible schlock to be sure, but they were still enjoyable to watch. Wonder Woman was mostly good until its terrible ending. Aquaman was terrible, but like BVS and Justice League, it was enjoyable. It wasn't offensive by any means. And honestly, I never cared to watch either Suicide Squad movie, but apparently the James Gunn second SS installment was an excellent course correction over the first one, and now he's running the show. Good for him. DC also greenlit the Snyder Cut, which a certain demographic of fans have been begging for up till this point, and was mostly well received. And people did like Shazam, even though I haven't seen it myself, so I can't comment. Then again, you have the worst of the DCEU, with installments like Wonder Woman 84 and, most recently, Black Shadow, that just completely fuck everything up for everyone and make a bad situation worse by undermining the hard work of so many other people who worked on all these other productions and tried to make something good. The only reason I don't think Black Shadow was worse than Wonder Woman 84 is because, mercifully, Black Shadow didn't torture us for a whole nother hour of pointless runtime. Seriously, what the fuck were Warner Brothers thinking letting Patty Jenkins get away with that shit? The point is, DCEU is a mess, but there's still some things to enjoy about it. It just needs some bloody competence leading the way, and again, maybe even a reboot from after the events of Man of Steel would go a long way to fix continuity problems, but as we all know, that's very unlikely to happen. Or hell, just reboot it from after the Snyder Cut and just have all the superheroes in play already without relying on origin story after mandatory fucking origin story. Because if DC wants to be different from Marvel, well, right there, that would be a great place to start being different. Just have the heroes fucking active and in universe. You don't have to freaking come up with a mandatory movie every time that no one's gonna give a shit about. Hell, Black Shadow should have just been a Superman movie. Hell, that way we could have scrapped all this bullshit involving MILF Bitch and Comic Book Kid, and that way you could have Black Shadow be the villain who fights Superman and gives him a run for his money. It's obvious that's what they wanted to do anyway, but instead we were treated to 2 whole pissing hours of The Rock being The Rock in another terrible The Rock movie. Well done, DC. Big fucking L. So even though I'd like to see the DCEU make some kind of comeback, I'm not holding my breath. However, I am very excited for the next installment of the Matt Reeves Batman series and the Todd Phillips Joker sequel. This is where DC and Warner Brothers should be committing all of their resources, and this is where they are absolutely starching Marvel in quality. You see, Matt Reeves and Todd Phillips made, wait for it, excellent fucking movies that were not, at least primarily, created to be part of a larger cinematic universe. They had a beginning, middle, and end with potential for sequels, And that's how it's meant to be done. If DC can get behind that formula, they'll be making a comeback in no time. It's just a damn shame they shat the bed by placing their comeback hopes on The Rock. Because Black Adam sucked, and nothing ever good, at least long term in the movie business, comes from involving The Rock. Fuck this movie. Anyway guys, that brings us to the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed this little rant. Hell, I guess it was more than a little rant, wasn't it? And be sure to let me know what you think below in the comments while I go ahead and plug the channel and other platforms related to it as well. First of all, I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to all of my Patreon supporters and YouTube members for all of their contributions to the channel. If you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, I've left the link in the description. Or if you'd like to become a YouTube member, you can just hit the join button below. Again, you can find my content on both BitChute and Odyssey. Be sure to check out those platforms to make sure you can still have access to my content. YouTube as of late has been very uncharitable with allowing creative freedom on this platform, so in case this video gets demonetized or Warner Brothers decides to be butthurt assholes about this and flag this video down, you can still view this video on those other platforms. Also, you can feel free to check out the channel's Discord server. What Discord basically is an online community where followers of this channel can go to congregate and talk about a range of different topics, ranging from DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, video games, comics, or pop culture in general. Check it out at your leisure and who knows, maybe you'll make some friends along the way. Also, if you're looking for more DC or Marvel related content on this channel, rest assured you won't have to look far. Here's a selection of videos you may enjoy, so be sure to check those out. Also, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Coolman229 for helping me out with the audio editing for this video. I've linked his channel below, check him out, he makes great stuff. And finally, here's one last thank you for staying till the end of the video. You are a legend and I'll see you next time.